So we're going to keep going to our next call here. We have Somber, who's talking to us from Washington. Somber, you are live on the Atheist Experience. What's happening?
Hi, gentlemen. Thanks for having me. I work graveyard, so this is currently the middle of the night for me. So I hope you'll forgive me. I'm a first-time caller, but I've watched the show a couple times. So I'm a Gnostic atheist in that I know God doesn't exist, and the reason I know God exists is because of application of the first law of thermodynamics and how I believe the universe works.
Yeah, so this is interesting. So first of all, Gnostic atheists, the rarest of the atheist breed. Most of them are agnostic atheists or some other description, but Gnostic atheists, you don't see too many of those. I am already questioning this idea because the laws of thermodynamics apply to the universe, and if God is outside the universe, I don't know why the laws of thermodynamics would apply to him, but I will let you make your point.
I can give you an argument for why there is nothing outside the universe.
Okay.
Using math.
Okay. Well, how entertaining is this? Because, this is a call-in show, and I don't want to have to be doing calculus live on the air.
Yeah, it doesn't take very much to explain. Do either of you have a background in physics? I'm just curious.
I did essentially AP physics, the English equivalent, so some, but not much.
I went to public school, and they taught me physics, so I think that's my background, yeah.
All right, no worries. So if you took the entire universe, all of the universe, well, first step, stop time, and you took the whole universe, the entire universe, not just the universe that we can observe, but the entire universe of all the energy in it.
Okay.
You could find in that three-dimensional XYZ space a plane and move it back and forth, and eventually you will find a point, even sliding between electrons and through black holes, where the energy on both sides of that plane is equal. Okay? And so if it's equal, mathematically, we can basically collapse that space from a three-dimensional space to a two-dimensional space, and we reduce our energy from XYZ to X and Y. No energy is lost, no information is lost. We've just simplified the universe to two dimensions. You can repeat the process where you take that two-dimensional plane, find a point in the middle of it where the energy is equal on both sides. You can collapse that to a one-dimensional line.
Okay.
And you can take that one-dimensional line and repeat the process, and you wind up with the universe actually being a non-dimensional point.
Okay.
The only information that universe has at that point is angle.
Okay.
And from that point, all basic universes would exist. So if we have the universe as a non-dimensional point, there is no other place, and there is no time. So there's nowhere for God to be. There's no outside.
What you're describing there, in my mind, is the singularity.
Yeah.
We don't know what happened before the singularity. We have no way of detecting what happened before the blank time. And so all the ifs you're giving are doing a lot of heavy lifting there, Chief. It's like...
So I would posit that there was no beginning, that the universe is essentially an object. And from that point, we have the universe essentially going from one point of equilibrium to another point of equilibrium.
It's an interesting hypothesis, but I'm not a theoretical physicist, but you'd have to show some pretty substantial proof that that's even possible, before you can even say it's likely.
Yeah, so that's the thing, right? I'm not gonna. First of all, I'm not qualified to have opinions that's outside of the consensus of the physics community about what to be said about the quote beginning of the universe. So if this conclusion involves a premise that's going to be outside of what's consensus, I'm not qualified to judge on whether or not this is even plausible because I just don't have that background. But I think there are simpler ways which you can say that God isn't real, specifically Yahweh, or at least is least likely, right? I don't know about these other kinds of gods being nature, gods being being, or these kind of abstract concepts. But Yahweh, I mean, I think has some pretty clear cultural influences, right? Pretty localized ideas, right? And we're probably on the same page there. So like when I talk about people with this idea, I'm usually pretty distinct in my language in saying, oh, I don't think God is real. I'm pretty Gnostic about God, but I mean Yahweh, right? I mean like
that particular
one, right? There's always going to be some of these abstract sort of God concepts that I just can't really evaluate on. So yeah, I would have to be agnostic on. So, that's kind of how I leave it. And you know what? No math involved in any of that, which I think makes it simple to communicate.
And I'm always leery of true Gnosticism because like to say that I don't know anything. I'm pretty sure about a lot of stuff, but I'm to 100% knowledge, absolute knowledge, even with potential arguments, I don't have the confidence to say that.
Yeah. Here's the catch. I don't believe you have to know everything to be able to disprove God. The other thrust of my argument, so that would be the volumetric disapproval of God. That essentially, if the universe is a non-dimensional point, there's no outside space and time for God to exist. That would be the first thrust.
What if God doesn't need space and time to exist, though? Like, what if there's something outside of space and time?
So everything has volume that exists. If something exists, it has volume, except for abstract thoughts. Think of anything material in the universe that exists, and it is
I don't know.
It has some
information, mathematics. I mean, like this gets very technical very quick as far as like what exists and what doesn't. Here's the thing: it's not that I don't think that this is an interesting topic of conversation. It's just when running a show like this, I have an audience literally in front of me, and I gotta make sure that they still care about what we're talking about, right? And it's like I gotta make this entertaining. They're wooing me now, so is there any way we can talk about this in a way that is going to be a little bit more, I don't know, bite-sized? Because as soon as we get into these bigger terms of philosophy and of mathematics and physics, it's just it loses the plot a little bit for a lot of people. You know what I mean?
Right. I can give the other thrust.
Okay.
The other thrust is using conservation of energy.
Okay.
Because we've calculated energy in systems billions of times a year. Think of every engineer, every physicist, every mathematics, every person can do these calculations themselves to find out how much energy is in the system. And we have never seen energy being added to a system. It just does not happen in our universe, not observable anywhere in it. So if there was a God, and this God wanted to do something in our universe, they would have to be adding energy into the system in order to manipulate the individual atoms and move them around. And never in any calculation have we ever seen that.
I agree.
Look through all the math of every time we've done this and not see any action.
I agree. In other words, a physical universe requires physical things to happen physically, right? Not trying to be trite about it. I'm just summarizing your points here, right? Like if we were talking about, this is exactly my problem when people talk about ghosts and the supernatural, right? Yeah. If you see a ghost, well, what does that mean? Did light bounce off of the ghost and into your eyeballs? If that's so,
what is it made of?
Yeah, it interacts with you in some way. Is it here on Earth because it too is bound to gravity? There's a lot of questions you can ask about that. So,
and I don't deny someone saw something.
Sure,
but I question how does that thing interact with the universe? With the matter and energy in the universe. And if it somehow moves something around or even, triggers a neuron to fire, it's adding a tiny bit of energy into the universe. So we should be able to see that somewhere in the system, and we don't.
Yeah.
I mean, we have satellites whirling around, at relativistic speeds.
Yeah.
And so if there was energy being created from God, making all these tiny little miracles all across the planet, we would see the mass of the Earth increasing ever so slightly.
Here's the other problem, though. There are, like I said, there are certain concepts of God you can say, well, he doesn't to affect the world, he has to be in the world. He has to affect the universe by being in the universe, and therefore he can't be maximally powerful because that would mean creating energy. Fine, but there's plenty of God beliefs that fall under the deist category, where like God did the thing and now he's gone.
Yeah.
He doesn't interact with the universe or exist within it now, but he did the thing, and so you can't disprove every God with math. Unfortunately,
this is why I think a God outside of the universe, right? I don't see any reason why it has to be bound by the laws of the universe.
Yeah,
you know. But I don't even know. I really don't know what it means to be outside of the universe.
Yeah, there's a concept that just seems like nonsensical.
It does kind of seem nonsensical, but
that was my first thrust.
Yeah, I gotcha. Well, Somber, we may have different.
Yeah,
I gotcha. We may have different ideas about atheism and why we're atheists, but we're generally on the same page here.
Yeah.
I think, right? Like there are definitely reasons, some better than others. Not saying yours are bad, but just like some that would make me think twice about Yahweh being a thing, or any other sort of relative God concept. So I do appreciate your input on that, and we'll let you go right now. But thanks again for calling in and giving us your take on it. Because again, Gnostic atheists, the rarest breed.
I don't know. I'm far too much of a chicken to bring physics to a feelings fight.
Yeah, I get you. We need to do like a David Attenborough thing, where it's like there's the Gnostic atheist in his natural environment, calling into the call-in show, trying to get his point across. That's not a good David Attenborough impression. I don't know what I was doing there.